but looking especially at Zoomer accounts where everybody's got the hashtag and everybody's got the, hashtag BLM, the pronoun, everything is already systematized in their profile as far as defining who they are. And in the way I see it, is kind of stunting one's growth, because you're already being defined, you're already being branded with this thing, this role that you are now occupying. And what room does that really give you to grow beyond that?
Lev, I think you stole that take from one of my Twitter threads about how about all these pronouns and stuff. It's already commodifying it's already barcoding the subject and being ready for like.
No, okay. I did not steal it. I did not see that thread. But what I did do is I had a dream a year ago where there were these Antifa people who had these baseball caps on, and their race was written on the front of their cap. So I think this is something that goes
true,
on. Like,
Lev, that's coming
yeah.
true. But if I could interject here for a moment,
Sure.
I'd like to point out the irony of saying that cyberpunk is a lack of control. The etymology of cyberpunk from cybernetic, it means to steer. And what cybernetics actually is entirely about is control.
Yeah, but not our control.
Right.
Well, sure.
Control
but,
systems.
But like, to qualify it as a lack of control is a very interesting thing. When in fact it's all about control. It's funny you talk about the locus of control as being external. Chaos actually had a great tweet today that the existence of pheromones of the people around you constitutes your exocrine system, and I thought that was a really insightful coinage.
Thanks.
Because really you are very controlled by, like, you can subtract all of the technology and all of the electronics. What's a village? What's a longhouse? Isn't that also a system of control that's external to you? If you read, like, in the Bronze Age Pervert, you can imagine your little village of 25 people or something like that. They arguably control you much more than a big corporation that's far away that just wants you to, like, not say the magic words.
And maybe what's the difference there is that when we have externally imposed drives, externally imposed, rational imperatives, that we're adapted to biologically, then maybe we call that a desire, and we say that that's basically good. And when we have these things that are novel to the human system that we're not adapted to biologically, that excruciate our system in the way Nick Land talks about, maybe we call those addictions, and we say they're bad.
Yeah, and another thing, oh, sorry about that.
Go on.
Yeah, and another thing I think about too is that one of the issues with a lot of 20th century theories on, and just in general, I think one of the big problems is too many of these theories, whether they be economic or philosophical, they're still rooted in this anthropocentric view of pure intelligence being located solely in a person, in a being,
even in a brain.
Yeah, in a brain.
You can imagine.
Which is, I think, one of the issues I have with Marxism is it's too anthropocentric, and I think it's too anthropocentric to exist as something when you can say, well, the motivating force of history is, quote unquote, the proletariat or the masses or the working class. I don't know in this particular time, I just do not think you can make that sort of claim that the proletariat as they exist, as they were in industrialization, could possibly be the main subject of history, of historicity at this time. So I think that one thing I agree more with Simondon, Gilbert Simondon, as cyberneticist of the 60s and 70s, is that technology is primarily an epistemological question. It's not an economic one. It starts epistemologically. And that's how we sort of go into Heidegger when he talks about being captured by it. It's all about control. It is a control of society. I think HP Lovecraft is 100% correct about that. But it's the kind of control, and it's also the forces of rational agents that are seeking to control systems of already embedded control. And I think that there's multiple layers of people And I actually like what you said, Gio, about temporality. How, you know, being an older millennial, I played Oregon Trail, so I was born into one world and I was given a different world. This is why millennials are so retarded, by and large,
Yes.
except for
And
all of us who
yes.
played
have
Oregon
not died
Trail.
of dysentery.
We've been in 3 worlds now.
Yeah.
I mean, we were
Yeah.
born into one, and then 9/11, and then now this. So
Yeah.
that's 3 different
There-
universes.
the
we've all had to
the Oregon
inhabit.
the Oregon Trail, by the way, when you said Oregon Trail, I imagine like swashbucklers with their swords just killing everything in their path as they're going to Oregon, and just leaving a bunch of organs on the ground, you know,
Yeah.
to mark the
Full of
trail.
cholera and human, you know, Donner Party cannibalism. It's like, well, that's another thing. Is like when I was a kid, I was like playing a child's game where people ate each other and died of diarrhea. They weren't given like, you know, told you if you're a boy or a girl, blah blah blah, trans subjectivity. All
And
this
there-
other
there is
a-
pie in
Oh my
the
God.
sky stuff. Like there is a historical component to it as well. You know?
For the record,
Oregon
there is
Trail.
a zombie apocalypse pastiche of Oregon Trail called Oregon Trail.
So I'd like to actually circle back to something you were talking about, Lev, with regards to like the BLM hashtags and all these Zoomer profiles of people basically categorizing themselves and putting them into boxes like this, right? And I think that that's a little bit of an oversimplification of what's going on. So I don't read philosophers, I read data research papers, but so that kind of informs my view of this situation. But to my mind, the world is becoming more and more quantified, right? We're collecting data on so many more things, and we're piping those into algorithms, which are building these. Essentially, these are human systems of control, which are becoming more and more dominant and more powerful over people. And thanks to things like advanced computer technologies, these systems are able to detach from human beings specifically. And this is kind of this accelerating techno-capital loop that Land was talking about in Meltdown and stuff like that. And so everything that isn't quantified will become quantified as this system tries to increase its power. And so it's kind of impossible to avoid being put in a box in some way, right? And so the way that you fight back against quantization like that is not by trying to dodge the categories, because then you just put yourself into an unknown category and you're still part of this legible group. What you do is you make the categories worthless. You degrade them, you troll them, you know? And so people who are putting BLM in their bios, I'm not saying this is a conscious thing, but it's not a explicit surrender to the system. It's more of a way of coding yourself, acting under a shibboleth, so that this this social categorization machine doesn't pick you out as, you know, the rusty wheel or whatever and knock you back down. And I think that similar thing is also happening with regards to LGBT identities. You know, so many Zoomer kids are identifying as queer, as bisexual, but as these very like light flavors that don't necessarily impact their day-to-day lives. And I think that's more becoming a way of just coding yourself to be unobtrusive and to continue existing sort of the security of anonymity, not the security of privacy.
Yeah, I don't know if you guys...
Yeah,
Sorry.
go ahead, Adam. Go ahead.
I don't know if any of you guys follow Mark Jacobs, the designer, on social media, but
I've heard of it.
So he was like the creative director of Louis Vuitton in the 90s, just like biggest fucking fashion designer in America for a very long time. Yeah. And Mark Jacobs, he was kind of cool back in the day. He was kind of like the Bret Easton Ellis of fashion, kind of like a normie conservative, like bourgeois prick, you know, but like cool.
Kind of like Vincent Gallo in film.
Yeah, well, they're very similar, except for like Mark Jacobs is gay and did heroin and shit. But Mark Jacobs is, after he left, I was just talking about this with my friend, the artist Matthew Malouf.
Oh, he's great.
Yeah. He's one of my good friends, and we were talking about Mark Jacobs' Instagram presence these days, because it's truly fucking ridiculous. So Mark Jacobs used to be this like pretty masculine, kind of like cool, conservative gay guy with tattoos, and he was like, his whole thing was being like a badass. But after he left Louis Vuitton, his personal brand started collapsing. Like like profit margins just started plummeting, and he started closing stores everywhere. So over these last 2 years, he's totally rebranded. Like, from what I've heard, he actually had like HR strategists come in for a meeting and tell him how to rebrand his gayness. And they're like, look, like you're sort of like 90s Gen X manly kind of gayness. It doesn't sell anymore. You gotta twist this shit somehow. Now he's on Instagram basically as like a drag queen. And he's not transgender at all, so there's nothing like authentic about it, but he's just trying to rebrand himself for the market at this very point in time, and he gets a shitload of likes, and his brand is coming back. But anyone with just like any sort of respect for authenticity or subjectivity, you look at this shit and you're like, this is repulsive.
Karl Lagerfeld is frowning in heaven right now.